the question women have failed to answer is, yes, you can get your own stuff, but can you maintain it? And America's did such a good job. I mean, men have did such a good job, right? Women have secured entitlements for themselves. They've ensured programs for themselves.
Mm.
They have made sure to push the social and political climate to where it caters to women,
Mm.
right? But then when we ask the real hard questions about society, nobody can really answer it. Can a
Right.
woman sustain these things? It is yet to be, the answer is yet to be yes.
There's definitely a difference between needing a man and wanting a man. When you think
Mm-hmm.
going back to the songs like the AP was talking about back in, I'm a survivor, um, the INDEP, like all of those songs in that era, that time frame, it really did. It was a mindset shift for Black women. It really was. It was touting. It was encouraging. Um, and maybe the intent was to encourage
Empower.
women to feel
Yeah.
empowered by being independent, but there was an ego, or to your point, like to the AP's point, somewhat of an attitude that came with it. And it was around that era because music is the wave of the world. Music is a feel good. Music helps to guide the wave, if you will. And it was a shift. It was a mindset shift with women. But there's a difference between needing a man and wanting a man. And during that time frame, women did feel like, I can do this by myself, I can do that by myself, I've got this, I've got that, I've got this, and I don't need a man. But that is the surface level stuff. I don't need a man, right? If we
Right.
talk about the other stuff, of course you need a man for some of the other stuff. We can rattle off the what's the word I'm looking for? There's a word I'm looking for, but it left my brain. But we want a man for certain things, but there are other things that we do need a man, just like a man needs a woman for certain things. And I'm talking about beyond sex at this point.
And I
Just
think that that's part of the issue too in a lot of these conversations as well, is that I think the ego gets so involved a lot of times, on both ends, where in these, especially in these spaces where men will talk about how, oh, men don't need women. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, we would be successful. We would be able to do all of these things, whether whether a woman was involved in our lives or not, just because we're men, And I think the women's response to that is also on that opposite end of like, well, we don't need a man. Like, what can you provide for me that I'm already providing for myself? That kind of thing. But in reality, like Coach K said before, we are interdependent, because no matter how successful we are as individuals, there's just certain traits, characteristics, abilities that we possess simply for being, based on our gender, just our makeup. So there are going to be some things that men are going to lack because they're not women, that makes that fits that puzzle piece. And the same thing with women. There are things that we're going to lack that having a man will benefit. So it's both of us acting as an interdependent, match, with each other to fill in those gaps. And when you operate in that manner, it's like, wow, it's just crazy, is good, because you need that balance.
I have that was a super chat we were talking about. So he came back and said this. Oh, well, no, this is it. He came back after this one. So, but let's hit this one first because we're going in order. Tara.
Oh, sorry. Marriage, politics, and sports, $5. Independent or desperate? And most single moms were submissive, or were submissive to the government.
I don't think that government chick is independent. I wouldn't look at a government chick as
I
being
wouldn't either.
I think she's a dependent.
Right. She's just a dependent on the government. Independent means you're not
You see,
Nobody else could claim you.
Well, it
Yeah.
is an oxymoron. Most women that claim to be independent are dependent on something or someone. It's
well, we're
funny.
talking about, and for this conversation, we're talking about not the woman. We can say you. I can say I'm a princess. We're talking about a real independent woman who
Mhm.
Okay.
has her own stuff. We're not talking
Yeah.
about the fake independent. I'm going.
Yeah.
Hood
So
rich.
y'all have heard me say before that the need for a man is not gone. It's just delayed. It's just delayed because what women are, the question women have failed to answer is, yes, you can get your own stuff, but can you maintain it? And America's did such a good job. I mean, men have did such a good job, right? Women have secured entitlements for themselves. They've ensured programs for
Mm,
themselves.
mm,
They have made sure to push the social and political climate to where it caters to women,
mm,
right? But then when we ask the real hard questions about society, nobody can really answer it. Can a
Like
woman sustain these things? It is yet to be, the answer is yet to be yes. Let me just ask y'all a
sustain
question.
what?
This is the way Trigger
Just
Mike
that
looks at things, right? We've had women in some of these professions since the 70s till now. That's about 50, yeah, 50 years. Have you seen a practicing lawyer, not a judge, because judgeships, very few people that were lawyers become judges. Have you seen a 60-year-old practicing woman in a courtroom? No. Most of the doctors that work part-time are women. Women tend to leave high energy, high stress jobs early. So, yes, they can get the education. They can do all of these great things for themselves. Can they maintain it the way that men do? That is where they start to falter. That is when the I don't need a man becomes, oh snap, I should have
Well,
took that more
can I
serious.
push back a little bit on that?
Mhm.
Um, I would say part of what can contribute to that, and the studies have shown that the um, the workload for a woman is totally different for a man, especially when they're married. So the thing is, a lot of times that even though you have women that may be in those same careers as men, the high stress level jobs, the difference with that is that if they are married and with children,
Mhm.
the workload on them is heavier because the expectation for how they're supposed to take care of the home, most of that is also placed on the woman. So
Yeah.
as a man, when you're married, your expectation is that the woman is going, even though society, we're trying to move away from that or say things are 50-50. But truth of the matter is it's never 50-50 when it comes to the home. It may
Mhm.
be 50-50 in paying bills per se, maybe with some couples, but when it comes to maintaining the home and the children, stats show that most of that workload still falls on the woman.
Yeah.
So I do believe that that is part of it. So as a man, you're free to put in them extra hours. You're not worrying about have to take off for work when your child is sick, because the expectation is that the woman is supposed to do that. So that makes, to me, it makes sense why a man can progress and stay in those positions much more so than a woman, as a husband, than a married woman, because she's
Yeah.
ultimately doing more work.
That makes a lot of sense, but it's only part of the explanation for it.
Mhm.
What we've noticed, and what this is something that women will tell you, they're not built for the capacity of work like men are. Like we know that outright, right? The reason why we should know it is that even if the statement is also true when women don't have kids, right? So the least amount there, the birth rate is decreasing because women are having babies later and or not having them at all. So even with that same metric, women drop out of the workforce at the same rate. So I definitely, with respect to women taking on that role in the home, the one thing I would caution people to realize is that the funny thing about women choosing work over the house is they can't keep their mind out of the house. I've had this conversation with people,
mm,
right? So when you notice a man plays himself and leaves his job, right? He sacrifices his advancement at work because his wife made a deal with him. He's going to realize that at some point, well, if you're just going to check on me 9 times a day, why don't you bring your ass here and be in the house then? We got this over here. A wife can't physically come home after being stressed out all day and see her husband's feet up on the couch. That mentally does something to her. Okay, she like little by little, she's going to wither and break away to the day where she's going to want to switch that role. And the irresponsible part, this is why I said men need to be more assertive. If you are going to spend your life trying to make a name for yourself at work, figure out a way not to handicap your man. From the day he starts working, he does not stop. Men work close to their death date for the entirety of their life. Women cannot match that. That's why you never cut his legs off. You never handicap him, because when you're on maternity leave, he's working. When you just don't feel like it and you want to cut your hours back, he's working, right? There are millions more women in the workforce than men, and we still outwork you in terms of hours worked. How is that even possible? There are millions more of you because more of us are in jail and we die sooner. That lets you know that our capacity for work, that's where we belong. So women naturally want to scale back. As soon as your kids, listen, mistaken, just imagine this. You were at work, you have kids, you know, when they were kids, your husband sending you all the pictures from all of their award shows, all of their sports games, and you just at work, because this is what dad's got to deal with. You just at work, you can't participate in none of it. Now he with all the moms taking pictures, like, this is so great. How do you think that affects the mom?
Oh,
They will die inside. Yes, they will die.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But well, the flip side, let me just ask, because I'm not a dad, but that doesn't bother you as a father to not be present at
My
your
dad, so
you know, awards and not being able to participate in those things.
So this is a hot button issue in the Black community too, because moms will be like, it matters to kids if you're at the game. Of course it matters. And I do believe that a lot of fathers that have the free time, in fact, they take the lead role on their kids' sports career, right? That have the time. But men, being mostly blue collar workers, work essential positions with all varying types of shifts. So if he can't be there, my father attended one sporting event, and it was for my little brother. Out of all four of his kids, on one. That dude worked. If he's not work, he sleep. We see him on Sunday when we all go to Old Country Buffet. I remember Old Country Buffet, and we have a good old time after. Like, you see what I'm saying? That's daddy's day. But otherwise, he's working. We are first generation Americans. He's an immigrant. He had nothing. He has to work, right? So we compartmentalize that to say this is what he has to do. It affects him, yes, but he has no choice at this point. It does not affect the father, because he has one duty above all else, is to provide and make sure we got a roof over our head. He don't care about a game if it puts that in jeopardy. And that's something that we got to do.
I bet he cares, but I could see the woman, and I would probably feel this way, almost like feeling resentful, you know, that she can't be there, and like this doesn't seem right. Even if, like, yeah, of course, majority of women are working to some capacity. I mean, not many are just going to be strictly stay-at-home moms, but because I've, you know, experienced that with my dad, and he was huge in our sports, but sometimes he did work one of those shifts where he couldn't be there, but it's kind of like, gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. You know, they don't sit around and pout and use that against, well, he didn't have a spouse. But I wanted to add one thing that I never thought about until I read it on a blog. But also, if women are working full time and then they're with the kids whenever they're home and, you know, helping with their homework, whatever, also house duties, but they don't really have any spare time to also make the house a home. And I never thought about this because, you know, I'm 27. We're not really doing like holidays yet over here, whatever. But it's like, you know, the little things that women do that really make the house, whether it's like traditions or just the little things, she probably doesn't have as much time for. And I never considered that. And that makes me sad. Like, F the job or the career, but that's just me. But I just wanted to add something to consider, you know, too.